everyone. My name's Marissa, as he said. And if you're not familiar with content strategy, actually Nicole gave a great introduction to what writers or content strategists do in the design and product development process. And today, actually, I was basically one of the first writers on the Messenger app for Facebook. So I wanted to talk to you about how we took messaging out of Facebook and have focused on building it into a separate app we call Messenger. So just to give an overview, I'm just going to kind of go over, again, how we became a separate app, a controversial change we had to make, and what we learned along the way. So Messenger actually launched as a separate app back in 2011. It was its own app, but it was basically the exact same messaging experience we already offered in the Facebook app. It even looked the exact same. Not a lot of people used it. However, those that did use it were more engaged and actually sent more messages. And they also really liked it. We were number 16 on iPhone's list of top 25 free apps, but we really wanted more people to use it and to make it a better experience. So we set out to redesign and rethink Messenger. We wanted it to feel like a native texting experience, and we designed it to work within the established conventions of the different phones' operating systems. We would adapt to each phone and follow any existing patterns. This way, Messenger felt just like your default text message app. Very natural and just what you'd expect for your device. And as the content strategist on the project, I set out to learn the language used on the different phones for various features and interactions. That meant I actually carried around multiple phones, using them and learning their conventions for things like gestures, settings, and notifications. At first, I did this on iPhone, which I was already used to, and then Android, which was pretty foreign to me at the time. But later, it also included a Nokia feature phone, a Windows phone, and an iPad. And for every platform, I looked at the system language and made it a guideline to always default to the existing standards and terms. By November 2013, we were ready to relaunch Messenger with a whole new look and feel. We wanted people to understand that the app was for texting and that it was different from Facebook. Instead of sharing to a big network of friends on Facebook, you were sharing things in private conversations. We also signaled a departure from Facebook by using a very different shade of blue. And we doubled down on the messaging around texting and being able to reach people instantly, because we knew that there were perceptions about Facebook messages as being very slow, like email. And to further distance ourselves from Facebook, we highlighted that you could message your phone contacts, even if they weren't your Facebook friends already. And next, we set out to make sure more people knew about Messenger. So we promoted it within the Facebook app. We tried out different value propositions, button text, various illustrations like these stickers you see here. And people did start installing Messenger, but it was pretty slow to catch on, and we knew we had to do more. So that brings us to the difficult change we had to make. We didn't come to the decision lightly, but we realized we had to remove messaging from Facebook altogether. Otherwise, people would always ask why they needed a separate app if they could just message their friends from right within Facebook. By this time, people on the Redesigned Messenger app were not only more engaged, but they also responded about 20% faster when they were using the app, and our retention rates were pretty high. We knew Messenger was the best experience we could offer people, but we had to convince them of this. We also wanted to dedicate 100% of our team's resources to Messenger, instead of supporting two different messaging experiences in two separate apps. So we started removing the messaging functionality from the Facebook app so that when you went to check your messages, you got one of these screens. The first few times you saw the screen, you could tap Not Now to dismiss it, but later it became a true roadblock. So you either had to install the app or go to the Facebook website to view your messages. Did anyone see these, by the way, or remember seeing them? Yeah. For a lot of times? Okay. So we knew the change wasn't going to be easy. It was going to be annoying. You were going to see it a lot, and people were going to be upset. So we'd expected headlines like these. Of course, the press did not use my language about messages moving, and instead chose to zero in on the word force. And we got more bad press. And we're even able to laugh at a few headlines like this one. But then it actually got worse. So a series of articles came out about the permissions in Messenger, and people started uninstalling the app over privacy fears. So as many of you probably know, most apps need to ask for permissions to run certain features on your phone. So like Instagram would need to ask for permission to access your camera roll in order for you to get to those photos, put filters on them, and then share them on Instagram. Similarly, Messenger needs permission to access your phone's camera roll so you can send those photos as messages, as well as access to your phone's camera and microphone so you can take new photos and videos from right within the app and send those too. Unfortunately, there were a lot of reports claiming that the permissions in Messenger somehow enabled Facebook to do stuff like use your camera to spy on you or use your microphone when you weren't even using the app. These were, of course, rumors, completely not true, so our PR team worked to clear things up in the press. But really, the damage had already been done. We'd lost a lot of trust, and people were deleting Messenger from their phones. It got to the point where we just couldn't really just sit back and let the press tell the story for us. So we had asked people to install this app, but we hadn't made them feel secure about using it. We had just assumed they'd like Messenger once they started using it and would understand how it works. But that wasn't the case. It was really up to us to clear things up for people. So we put this notice in the Facebook app and tried to get the facts out there. If you click through more, when you saw this little notice, you came to a page where we actually came out and acknowledged the rumors. This was a first for us, but we knew we had to be more upfront and to try to ease people's concerns. So next I wanted to just kind of share my 5 key takeaways from this experience. The first one is to prepare people for change. You should really let them know that change is coming way in advance and give them a clear rationale for those changes. We'd learned from previous mistakes that communicating more information more often could actually help people get on board with change. So we sent out emails like this one, letting people know the change was coming and explaining why we were doing this. In addition to the email that gave people a heads up, we used various in-product announcements so that everyone knew it was coming. We really just wanted to make sure people were not going to be surprised when we removed messages from an app that they might be using every single day. The second thing I learned is that sometimes more words can be better. As content strategists, we're taught to say a lot with as few words as possible, especially working on mobile. A lot of times we have these space constraints. That's going to be true in most cases, but when you're making controversial changes and disrupting people's experiences, you really owe it to them to take more time and words to explain what's going on. So we created whole pages where we went into much more detail about why we removed messages from the Facebook app. This is where I was fortunate to be able to learn from the work of other content strategists on my team who had already experienced communicating major changes like this for Facebook. Here we clearly explain the change, give a rationale for it, provide concrete value, and then set expectations for how everything will work. We also provide a link to give us feedback. The next thing I learned is just about taking time to test and iterate. And I know this sounds pretty obvious to a lot of people who do what we do, but it's actually contrary to Facebook's culture of moving fast and shipping quickly. We normally release things, we're on a two-week release cycle right now for Messenger, so we move really fast. But for this, we spent more than a year on the project because we knew it was such a major change and it was going to be really hard for people to get used to it. So these were some of the iterations that we went through just on this one screen. In previous versions, the roadblock screen just had one big install button, but we realized it was important to give people another option and a way to learn more about the change. We also learned that it was important to use first names and talk directly to people, and it helped to explain that they'd be able to switch back and forth between Facebook and Messenger. We also tried around with different button text, like remind later, to let people know that they'd see this notice again. Number 4 is that content strategists can lead user experience projects as well. Since this project was all about communicating a change, I actually had to do more of the heavy lifting than some of my designers. My designers were very crucial early on in developing these templates that we later iterated on, but then they had to go focus on other things like designing new features for the app. As the content strategist, I had to see the project through to completion, defining the communication goals, making sure people were seeing the right content at the right time, working with engineers, and partnering with our legal, marketing, and policy teams to make sure we were all on the same page. I think the designers appreciated me leading this project and were really relieved to not have to worry about it themselves. They also recognized that I was just as invested in the product and the user experience as they were. And finally, we realized the importance of our voice. Messenger is all about conversations, and we knew we needed to start having conversations with the people who use our product. So we got more comfortable going into more detail about how things work. Here we explained in everyday human language what the permissions in Messenger are used for, and again took the opportunity to articulate why we remove messages from Facebook. We also started to work more on defining the voice of Messenger. And because of these experiences, we've added trustworthy to our list of voice attributes. Of course, the app is about conversations, so mainly our voice is around being kind of personal, fun, useful, conversational, and human. We also now have 5 content strategists writing for Messenger. So we really needed clear guidelines on voice and tone to help us all stay consistent and to make content decisions quickly. Today, more than 600 million people are using Messenger, and we've added many more features like voice and video calling. Messenger also recently became a platform for developers to build apps designed for sharing GIFs and other content back into Messenger. And we've also started to integrate with businesses so that customers can have more personal conversations with businesses and get real-time updates about their orders. You can learn more about any of this on messenger.com. And that's about it. So thank you.